Everybody, welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how you doing, my brother?
Doing good, man. And let me tell you what a whirlwind this past couple weeks have been.
Oh yeah, it has been absolutely crazy. For those of you who don't know, well, welcome back. We are welcoming you to the off season of the NFL season. No games are happening right now, but a lot is still happening. It is free agencies. Now, for those of you who do not know, free agency is when players' contracts are up and they are able to move to other teams. And so this typically happens around middle of March, and free agency happens all the way until the season and throughout the season as well. But the notable names of players that you may be familiar with have changed teams. And so today we wanted to discuss all those significant players that you were familiar with on other teams now in a different uniform this upcoming season. So Chris Palmer, I'll let you start it off. Tell me what caught your eye this free agency.
Well, first off, what caught my eye was 2 days before free agency started, when when there was, I think there were 5 or 6 different teams that were doing in-house conversations with their teams, like saying that they were expecting to pick players up, they were expecting to extend, like they were doing prelims to the free agency. But going into this free agency, there was a couple of questions as to who was going to end up where. One of which was, where's Russell Wilson going to go? One of which was, where's Derrick Henry going to go? Where is Saquon Barkley going to go? Where is Kirk Cousins going to go? There was a bunch of mainframe names that went around going into this offseason questioning where they go, and the answers are out of this world. Starting with Derrick Henry. Congratulations. My God, you want to talk about an on-paper immediate elevation? Derrick Henry signing with the Baltimore Ravens is one of the biggest pickups I have ever seen in football.
Oh man, it's a great fit, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a great fit. We're the number one running team, and since 2018, since Lamar has entered the league, Derrick Henry
Mm-hmm.
has the most rushing yards by any running back. So he's the running back with the most rushing yards since Lamar's come into the league, and he's coming into the number one rushing team in the league. And I think he's a great fit for the Ravens. And I was telling you, I was joking with you. I might have to get a Derrick Henry jersey, man. Like it's such a great fit. Um, and I'm excited to have him come to Baltimore.
It's exciting, but at the same time, it's interesting. And I sat down and I thought about this for a little bit. And you know me, I'm a huge fan of Derrick Henry. It's interesting because over the past 5 years, like you said, he has the most rushing yards. He also has the most rushing attempts as a running back. But also, on the flip side of that, Lamar Jackson holds the most rushing attempts as a quarterback over the
Hmm.
past 5 years. So while I'm excited to see him on such a run-heavy offense, I'm interested to see how your offensive coordinator is going to balance the two of them, especially because they are two different styles of runner. They are from two totally different play schemes. Lamar Jackson is a read option runner, and Derrick Henry is a north-south runner. While he fits into the play scheme of run heavy, the playbook doesn't necessarily format to Derrick Henry's strong suits. So
I
that is
disagree,
just,
but continue.
I'm just interested to see the balancing between the two.
I I am interested to see the between the two as well. And the reason I disagree is because we did have a power runner in our system for the last 3 years. His name was Gus Edwards. He was the Gus Bus. He was the north south runner. And last year, under Todd Monken's system, he actually had his best statistical year. Obviously, Lamar had the most rushing yards on our team, but I think that that's a very. I think that our rushing style does incorporate Derrick Henry's rushing style of north south. Plus, Derrick Henry is also going to have the luxury of a fullback, and not just a fullback, an elite fullback in Patrick Ricard, because he did not have that in Tennessee. He did not have anyone blocking for him for the first, for the first 2-3 yards. So now you have Patrick Ricard blocking for Derrick Henry, and you and I both know Derrick Henry is amazing once he gets downfield. I think
His one
giving
issue
him
was always getting contact onto him first. But go on.
exactly, you get contact onto Ricard first, and then you let Derrick Henry go down the seam, and that could really be upsetting for offenses. But it's not just balancing Lamar and Henry; it's balancing Lamar, Henry, and the passing game as well. It's got to be a balance between all three. So I'm
Correct.
interested to see how Todd Monken is going to orchestrate this offense, especially now. Since we're talking about the Ravens, as much as I am very happy with how the Ravens acquired Derrick Henry, we did lose a good significant amount of players to free agency. Our running back Gus Edwards, who I've mentioned previously, he is now on the Chargers. We had our two offensive linemen, John Simpson at left guard and Morgan Moses at right guard. Right guard and then right tackle. Yeah. Morgan Moses and John Simpson both went to the Jets. So to beef up that line for Aaron Rodgers, which good on the Jets because that's what you need. You need good, strong offensive linemen. We did pick up Josh Jones from the Texans, so we did substitute that tackle. But the Ravens did lose a good amount of players to free agency. But I'll be honest, this was kind of expected. With how Lamar's contract is, we weren't going to retain everyone, and especially last year, a lot of these players had their best year. They would expect more money to come in from other teams. So, which leads me to Patrick Queen joining forces with your Steelers, and that is a great addition. I will say this though, I love Patrick Queen. I love him at the middle linebacker 2 spot than the middle linebacker 1. Because before Roquan Smith came into our defense, Patrick Queen was middle linebacker 1. He does not read the field as well as Roquan. He reacts to what is happening, not reads it. And there's a difference there, and you know that difference. And I think him and Cole Holcomb coming off of injury, and I hope he comes off very strong off injury.
God, I hope.
I think Patrick Queen is going to be great on your defense. However, I would prefer Cole Holcomb to be the middle linebacker 1 to Patrick Queen's number 2, because otherwise Patrick Queen is going to be a very reactionary middle linebacker compared to, say, like Roquan or Cole. But I think it's a great fit for you guys regardless.
I think he is an unbelievable fit. I think his zone reading and just all-around pre-snap communication is something that's going to elevate our defense immensely. I feel Cole Holcomb is actually a little bit more reactive than him when it comes to like zone reads on runs and like being the blitzing linebacker that he is. The reason why I like Patrick Queen is because he really reminds me of Ray Lewis when it comes to how he was able to read the middle of the field and then react patiently, but also hyper aggressively when he needs to be. He was able to navigate the field differently than anybody else who just moves and reacts. Like Cole Holcomb, he's very good, but he reacts on impulse. Patrick Queen is more reserved. He is, that's really just the word for it. He's more reserved and he has a more mature mindset as to how he's supposed to move in this particular sequence. So I would actually like to see him either in a middle linebacker 1 tandem spot with Cole Holcomb, with Quan Alexander, and maybe a drafted linebacker at number 2, or throw him at number 2, but keep him in the pocket on zone passes. But I very much like his addition to our defense. It elevates us immensely.
Yeah, I think just having those strong veteran presence in all levels of your defense really enhances your defense. One thing I will say about getting back to the Ravens, is that we did lose Geno Stone, our safety, who did have his best season last year, and I was a big fan of. We lost him to the Bengals. God damn it, we lost him to the Bengals. It could have been any other team, but we lost him to the Bengals.
But it's okay. Joe Mixon's off the Bengals.
Joe
That's all that
Mixon is off
matters.
the Bengals. Joe Mixon is on the Texans. So let me start by saying, the Bengals are moving very quietly. They did acquire a couple tackles to beef up their offensive line as well, which seems to be a pattern of theirs because they just need to get a lineman like Candy to protect Joe Burrow. The loss of Joe Mixon makes it very interesting because he was a very big impact player for them, and although like his numbers may not be as flashy and as exuberant as say like a Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey or stuff like that, but he was very reliable for the Bengals for many, many, many years. I think that really leaves a void in the Bengals offense, and that's one thing I do want to talk about in free agency. Is sometimes it's not like it's important to see where players go, but I think one thing to also consider is the void they leave behind on the team that they left. And let me give you a prime example of that. It's like not so much where he went, but
It's what he left.
it's the void that is left behind. And that I want to bring up Saquon Barkley, who went to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'm just going to peel back the curtain a little bit. Again, for those of you who've been watching, I like to write stuff down in my notebook. At this current point in time, I have 82 free agent moves. So teams either players traded or like free agency. So 82 players. My notebook is absolutely just like filled with names. It's just filled, right? And I have highlighted names of players of like significant moves that I thought were there. Saquon was one of them, but because of his absence for the Giants. Now, and was it 2 years ago, I saw the Ravens-Giants game in the MetLife, and I would tell you about 80% of Giants fans were wearing Saquon Barkley jerseys. Like, he was that team. Like, he was the New York Giants. And now he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I can only imagine Giants fans are burning his jersey, but he was their offense. Now they're the Giants. Your offense, you picked up Devin Singletary. He's good, but he's not Saquon.
Not Saquon good.
But he's in the last 2 years since he's been relatively healthy. I mean, he got injured last year, but last year he was fully healthy. In the past 2 years, he has 2,800 scrimmage yards. That is the fifth most amongst running backs in the league in the past 2 seasons. So he's been the driving force of that Giants offense. Now the Giants is like, you guys, like if you thought your offense was bad last year, losing Saquon, it just got 10 times worse.
The story with the Giants is up there with the story of the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, because this was a year coming. We saw this coming the minute Daniel Jones signed his name to that contract.
Mm-hmm.
That Saquon Barkley will not continue to play with the Giants after his contract is up. Mm-hmm. It was all but written in stone. I don't think anyone really expected him to go to Philly, but I feel like that was more of a middle finger on the way out the door to the New York franchise. Like, you didn't want to pay me, now you're going to have to feel me twice a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's a big fuck you energy.
That's a hefty message.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw something, I think it was the owner of the Giants came out and he said that he's sickened to his stomach about Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles. My man, that one's on you.
It is. 100%.
That one's on him. It's on you. You knew outright who you should have paid the year you paid Daniel Jones, and it wasn't him. You knew exactly who got you to where you went, and then you doubled down, franchise tagged Barkley, paid him the contract, played like shit, and then said you had buyer's remorse. and now that the player you should have paid is gone, you're saying you're sick to your stomach. Own it. You earned this one.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. Is like Giants fans, you can get mad at all you want at Saquon. It's on your ownership, because when a franchise tag, for those of you who don't know, when a player is drafted to a team, depending on what round they're selected in, their contract that they're assigned to is between 3 to 5 years, depending on what round. Some have an extra year option, but typically after that, then a team will sign. If they want to keep that player, they sign them to an extension for a couple of years, like 4 or 5 years or something like that. That's an extension of your contract. A franchise tag is you basically, that player doesn't have a choice in the matter. The team is like, okay, we're going to have you play for us for 1 more year, but your salary for that 1 year is going to be the league average for your position. So you're going to get good money that year, but it's not a guarantee that they will sign you to
Next year.
an extension afterwards. Yeah, exactly. So most of the time in the modern era, players will not re-sign with their team that franchise tag with them, more often than not. So once the Giants gave Barkley the franchise tag last year, it was all but inevitable that he was going to sign somewhere else. And I think for Giants fans, it hurts because, again, he was your team. He was that team. There were so many Saquon Barkley jerseys that I saw in the MetLife. But this is on your ownership. And now you have a huge hole to fill in your offense.
And you chose Devin Singletary to do it.
And again, Devin Singletary, he's not a bad running back, right? He had a really good year for the Texans last year, but
he's not can't carry a franchise.
Exactly.
He cannot carry a franchise.
That's the thing, though. He's a good player. He's not a franchise player. And now I think Barkley going to Philly, I think that he's not going to be as explosive as we think, personally, because the Philly, their offense, they're a very run-dominant team as well. Between last year with Swift and Hurts, they had a very explosive running game, but I don't think that Barkley's going to elevate their production on running, although I think that he will have really good flashes. Personally, I've not been like a big Saquon Barkley fan. I'm just not a big fan of his style of running personally, but I do understand the importance to a franchise for the Giants that he was, and I respect that. So I do want to just say real quick, we have mentioned a lot of running backs at the current point in time. There have been 12 running backs in the past 3 weeks that have changed teams from last year to this year, and that is a lot. These are notable names: Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs to Green Bay. That is a big one. Austin Eckler, A.J. Dillon. There's so many running backs on here. That was one of the first things that I noticed. I was like, wow, running backs are now getting the respect that they deserve because now teams are paying them accordingly. Last year, you and I, we've talked about it, where it's like teams are not willing to pay running backs. It took a year, but now they are. So,
yeah, I feel like everyone was paying the quarterback out of the way first. Now our quarterbacks are paying. Now let's go pay our running backs.
Exactly.
But the one thing I'm starting to like a lot in this league, it started happening, I guess 2 years ago, you could call it, when it started really becoming noticeable, and it was really started to be noticeable with the Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt running back by committee situation with Cleveland, with Kevin Stefanski. It's becoming more of a running back by committee league, where if you don't have 2 or 3 running backs that can get it done in specific situations, your offense is going to suffer for it. There's no longer a sole running back team. There's one or two, maybe. But when you look at those offenses totally, if they don't have an ace in the hole, or they have a different play scheme that totally outweighs their lack of a run game, best example is San Francisco with their passing game, you don't really find teams without more than one running back anymore. Now with the Eagles, they have DeAndre Swift and Saquon Barkley. Now, while I agree with you, don't...
DeAndre's on the Bears now.
Oh, that's right. He is on the Bears. So it's Saquon and who?
Kenneth Gainwell, and I don't know offhand, but I know Kenneth Gainwell is still a running back on the roster for them.
Right. So they may need to look into the draft and try and pick up a second start-worthy running back.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that it's becoming more of a running back by committee league.
I like it too, because you know why? It takes pressure off the running back position, but it's still important to have, right? And I think that for some teams, if you have a coherent running scheme, like an identity of running the ball, you'll be fine. Take a look at the Lions, for instance. They have David Montgomery, and they have Jahmyr Gibbs, and both were absolutely lethal the whole season and into the postseason, and they were both healthy and going into the postseason. And that's the thing, is like with the injuries now in the league, it's become more prevalent where it's like you need depth in all your positions, but the running back position is one where you cannot overlook, because that is, you and I, we said it before, teams that run the ball well are teams that are like, those are the good teams in the league. That's just
right. Those are the better teams in the league, and it's becoming more and more certain that one running back doesn't get it done anymore.
Yeah,
you have your anomalies like Christian McCaffrey, but look at the offensive regime he's in. Prior to him being there, who was Christian McCaffrey?
I mean, Christian McCaffrey was still a stud in Carolina, but
but he had no help to complement him, is what I mean. So he never went anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't really have. They don't really run with anyone besides Christian McCaffrey in there, but their offense again is very versatile, and we've discussed that plenty of times. I think that for a lot of the teams in this free agency period, a lot of teams are really getting depth, and they're not afraid to pay players at the rate that they deserve. And obviously, because there's the NFL, for as much as we love it, let's not forget it's a business, right? It's all about making money, right? And there's so much money to be going around, with, especially now since the owners agreed to increase the cap. So now teams have more money to spend on more players, and that's probably why we're seeing a big influx of players moving to other teams, because now they're getting paid their worth, getting paid their value. And that's the thing, is like, I have, as you know me, off air, I criticize capitalism a lot, but I'm still a fan of the NFL. But do they still deserve? Should they chase that money? Absolutely. They should absolutely chase that money, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. Why players go to teams is their own motivation. For instance, Derrick Henry, we signed him to a 2-year deal, $16 million. It's not a lot compared to, say, a couple of other teams, but it's like
that could have called him, right?
But why did he come to the Ravens? Because he's like, they give me the best
situation to win.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of players have a lot of different reasons to sign for different teams, and I think that when you look at this free agency period, a lot of players moving to these different teams, a lot of them fit very well into the teams that they have joined. We didn't talk about some of the big names. We talked about Derrick Henry, Saquon, Patrick Queen. Before we get into the big elephant in the room, Kirk Cousins to Atlanta. That's a really big move.
That's
That
an
was one of
interesting move.
because Atlanta is filled with a lot of young stars around them with a new head coach, and now you get a veteran quarterback in Kirk Cousins, who, prior to his injury last year, was putting up MVP caliber numbers. And he's been a solid quarterback in the regular season. Obviously, in the postseason, that's different. But what was the weak spot in Atlanta?
It
The
was the
quarterback.
quarterback. Of course
Yeah.
it was.
So now, like, you get
It's
Kirk
going to be
Cousins that
interesting.
fits very well in that new Atlanta system. Um, I like that move a lot, but I think we should get to the elephant in the room.
Oh, we're going to the AFC North now, huh?
We're going specifically to Pittsburgh.
Oh, we're going to Pittsburgh. A
We're
lot
going
of stuff has
specifically,
happened in
and I'm
Pittsburgh.
going to timestamp this right here, right now, because this is we're
There's a
going to
lot
be
to
on here.
unpack with Pittsburgh.
We're going to talk this for a couple minutes right here.
All right.
But
So mark it at 25 minutes.
25 minutes.
Yeah.
Russell
It's at 24:30.
Wilson.
Russell Wilson is a Pittsburgh Steeler.
He's a Pittsburgh Steeler, but he, as first off, I want to get your thoughts on that real quick.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. So first off, I'm going to give my hat off to our GM Omar Khan for having one of the single most aggressive off seasons I've ever seen the Pittsburgh front office perform. From the Patrick Queen signing to Von Jefferson to Quez Watkins to Russell Wilson to Justin Fields. I think we also got a center. So hats off to him. But we're going to start with Russell. On a veteran's minimum, 1 year, $1.3 million contract because he's being paid almost $38 million by Denver to not play for them. A year 13 Russell Wilson playing on a veteran's min. Sounds good. It's sheerly a segue year in my opinion. I read something that the Steelers have intentions to sign him to a long-term deal. He said he wants to play till he's 45. I don't think his body's going to allow him. That's just my personal preference. We have a full quarterback room for under $5 million right now. With Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Let's let that one sink in for a second.
But wait, Palmer, where did Kenny Pickett go? I thought he was going to stay with the Steelers.
Oh no, I was wrong on that one. I'll eat that one. I was wrong on that one.
Not that you were wrong, but I know when we talked about this, we kind of danced with this in last season a little bit. With
a little bit, we kind of dabbled into it,
like a veteran who could
a contingency plan in the event,
who can mentor Kenny Pickett, right?
Right, and
Kenny
then
Pickett
the rumor wheel
started.
Rumor wheel started spinning that Russell Wilson wanted to come to Pittsburgh. We kind of dabbled into that, and then the article heard around the world was that Kenny Pickett refused to take a backseat to Mason Rudolph. I remember sending it to you. And then me saying, I hope it was satire. We spoke about it.
Mm-hmm.
On air, we spoke about it. And then he came out and he turned it down, said that didn't happen. Gave him benefit of the doubt. We dump Mitch Trubisky. We dump Mason Rudolph. We pick up Russell Wilson. Now he had the opportunity that we were talking about. You have the veteran to learn from and the contingency plan if needed. He went to the front office and asked for a trade. This was not the doing of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was the doing of Kenny Pickett. He did not want to play backup for Pittsburgh. Fine. So you know what the Pittsburgh Steelers did? They heard, I don't want it to be a competition for a starting spot. So we said, don't worry, where you're going, it won't be much of a competition. And they sent him to Philly.
Bro.
So, barring catastrophic injury, because we know Jalen Hurts can play hurt, Kenny Pickett just cut his career at the throat.
Yeah.
This past season may have been the last time we see him as a starting quarterback for a long time.
Yeah.
But it now opens the window for Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And now you and I, we've both kind of had a mutual soft spot for Justin Fields, but just knew he was in a dumpster fire of a situation in Chicago. Me personally, I feel the opinion on Justin Fields has been jaded by the circus that is the Chicago franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And now he is sitting in the best situation he could possibly be in. He went from such a fragile franchise that had no stability underneath him that could have one of the most stable ran franchises in professional sports. With a veteran who is a career facilitator, as you know, you and I, we like Russell Wilson, but if you look at his track record, he has the one MVP, he has a Super Bowl, but he's a facilitator.
Not have an MVP.
I thought he had an MVP.
Nope, never had an MVP vote.
Oh, so he has the one ring. He's a career facilitator. He gets the ball to where it needs to be, and he lets the people who are paid to do the big things do the big things. That's all Justin Fields needs to be. He doesn't need to be the superstar. And with Russell Wilson, I feel you use his mind more than his body, and you let Justin Fields see the field more.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look to the future with Justin Fields. I would try to let them fight it out for the long-term contract. But high hopes for Pittsburgh. High hopes for Pittsburgh.
I want to backtrack for a little bit. So first off, the Steelers were the big players in the month of March. They were the ones that made countless moves to the point where this was an unprecedented offseason for the Steelers. They have never, in my memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, they have never done as many drastic free agent moves in one offseason that I could ever remember.
I can't remember anything as serious as this.
Because their offense changed like that.
Overnight.
And I don't know if it's a better offense. I have a lot of questions in regards to how the Steelers are going to look. Believe me, I'm optimistic because I like a lot of the players that you guys picked up, right? But there is, again, I had a lot of questions last year with the Ravens' new offense, especially with, new offensive coordinator, Lamar under contract and everything like that. But we still had kind of the same core, right? How Zay was going to look and all that stuff. It was better than I expected. And I was very blown away by that. This is like you guys have a new quarterback, a new backup quarterback, a new offensive coordinator in Arthur
Two new
Smith.
Receivers.
You have you have Van Jefferson. Which kind of moves George Pickens to the number 1 slot because they traded Deontay Johnson to Carolina. So you move George Pickens, that kind of moves him to the number 1 spot. You have Van Jefferson slide in at number 2. You have, obviously, still, we mentioned Patrick Queen before as middle linebacker, possibly 1, maybe 2. So I would still expect your offense to be a very run-dominant offense because that's what Arthur Smith likes a lot. Arthur Smith, your new offensive coordinator, was the former head coach for Atlanta last year and a couple years prior. So, and he has a very efficient running scheme. So long as you guys retained Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, solid. Keep them, right? Because that's your thunder and lightning combo right there. That's what you and we talked about before. But Russ, I think what's going to happen with the Steelers is Russ went to the Steelers because Denver cut him, right? And they're paying him still that money. It's still a lot of guaranteed money. So like you said before, Denver's paying him not to play for them. You could play anywhere else, but you can't play in Denver. So be it. Okay. He did visit the Giants.
It did not go well.
The reason he didn't sign with the Giants was because they couldn't guarantee that he would win the starting spot over Daniel Jones. Which, I mean, in my opinion, Russ over Daniel Jones any day of the week. But that's just my opinion. He went to Pittsburgh because they were assured him that you are going to be our starter come week 1. Obviously, barring any injury or anything like that, he is going to be their starter, the starter week 1, unless Justin Fields just absolutely blows them out of the water for in the offseason. Now, meanwhile, so Russ signs with the Steelers, right? Meanwhile, the Bears are trying to get rid of Justin Fields while still acquiring a lot of pieces. A lot of talent. They got DeAndre Swift. They got Keenan Allen from the Chargers. You still have DJ Moore there. You got Kevin Byard as safety from Philly.
And you got a big all-pro center.
You got a big all-pro. So the Bears are, meanwhile, they're like, okay, we're gonna get all this talent, right? They're gonna get all this talent. And it's like Justin Fields, like, for me. And
nope.
Then the Bears said, "Nope, not for you. We want Caleb Williams in the draft. That's who we really want. And that's a story for another time." It's like, yeah, Justin, we're getting it for our quarterback. For now, that's
for the next guy.
Meanwhile, free agency's happening, and other teams are signing quarterbacks left and right, and so Justin Fields' market kind of shrinks a little bit. Like Atlanta was a good fit for him. Kirk Cousins goes there. Okay, the Raiders have an opening because they need a starting quarterback. Oh, Gardner Minshew. Okay, but what Vikings? What, you just got rid of Kirk Cousins? What about? Nope, we're gonna get Sam Darnold. Okay, so his
blasphemy that those two were picked up before Justin Fields. Blasphemy.
His market kept shrinking. Meanwhile, the Steelers, in the quarterback room, like you said, Kenny Pickett's like, he's like, I don't want to compete for my starting job. They're like, okay, you know what? And Mike Tomlin said this before.
So you never compete.
Well, Mike Tomlin said this before. It's like, we want players who want to play here. And clearly Kenny Pickett did not want to play there. And I think at a certain point when the Steelers gave up on Kenny Pickett when they
they chose not to play him while healthy in the playoff game.
Exactly. When he was healthy and was able to play against Buffalo in the wild card round, they chose Mason Rudolph. At that point in time, they were already off Kenny Pickett.
I understand that, but sorry to cut you off, but I kind of disagree there. I feel like that's kind of more feeding the hot hand. Mason Rudolph was the hot hand at the time. You can't take him off the field if he has a beat of momentum.
Okay.
I see both sides of that argument there. If Mason was playing cold and they decided to still keep him in, yeah, it would be way more weight behind we gave up on him during the playoffs because he was healthy.
I think, and I'll agree with you on that because one thing that Mason Rudolph was doing that Kenny Pickett wasn't was scoring touchdowns.
Right, he was scoring points and not turning the ball over.
Points. That's the thing. So, okay. I think Mason Rudolph is now a Tennessee Titan, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yes.
So, meanwhile, Russell Wilson walks into the building. Kenny Pickett's like, I'm out. I'm done.
I'm out.
The Steelers are like, okay, go to Philly. Go to the other side of Pennsylvania. We don't want you. Okay, done. So now it's like, okay, Russell Wilson's in the quarterback room alone. You kind of need someone else now, right? Because you can't just have Russell Wilson. You need depth, right? Like we said before, you need depth at each position. And typically for NFL rosters, there's about 3 quarterbacks on your roster. And there's still a practice squad. You can call players up from the practice squad, but typically NFL rosters will have 3 quarterbacks on at a time, just for worst case scenario purposes, right? God forbid. But Russell Wilson's all alone. And the Bears like, oh, man, we're trying to get rid of Justin Fields. The Steelers like, we'll take him. We'll take him. And here we are. And now the Steelers have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields at quarterback. So which leads me to, this is what I think. you and I, we like both quarterbacks, right? I like Russ a lot. We both have a soft spot for Justin Fields. Again, we think that Fields, we'd like to see him in a different opportunity other than outside of Chicago. Russell's starting week 1. And the only way Justin Fields is going to see the field is if it's not good for your Steelers. And what do I mean by that? The only way Justin Fields is seeing the field this year as a starter is if Russell gets hurt, which obviously we don't want injuries to happen to anyone, right? Or he's playing very poorly that at this point it's like we need a spark. We need something. Fields
Right.
get in there. So I think some part of me is saying is like Russell's going to start week 1, but I think Fields is going to finish week 18. And I think for both the Steelers is like you kind of want to see what both have left in them.
Right. And here's the thing, and that's why I said it last year, and I'll continue to say it. I'm going to be one of the most patient Steelers fans around. Because to me, this is a fun process, watching this rebuild happen. I like watching this happen. Because it's showing, again, it shows the stability of the franchise. That through all of the fucking turmoil of not being able to find a quarterback in fucking 3 years, to now we've landed, well, since Ben Roethlisberger has retired, we have not been able to find a stable quarterback. We fell into some receiver trouble where every number one we've had has fallen into shit. We've gotten rid of them. We were having issues with our coordinator, Matt Canada, having the fucking number 27 to the 31st offense, so it was trudging through the shit for a little while, but here we are
yet
coming,
still winning too.
Still winning. And that comes at the tip of the hat to, again, the front office, Mike Tomlin, and just pure grit and determination to get through adversity. And here we are now in 2024. We have 2,000-yard backs. We have a year 13 veteran quarterback. We have a quarterback with unseen potential that you and I both, I don't know if you see it as clear. I see a lot of potential in Justin Fields. I feel his ceiling is totally not even close to where he's at. And I feel him being in such a stable situation, he's going to totally turn the narrative of him upside down. And that's what I hope the most.
I do see potential in him. I need to see it in reality. I don't want to fantasize about his potential. I want to actually
I want to see it. I want to see it applied.
I think that last year, the last couple stretches of for Chicago last year, I know you were seeing it because you were like, oh, there's something there in Chicago. And I think now the Chicago team is completely different than what was last year, right? So that Chicago team that Chicago team that you saw last year is completely different than the Chicago team that's going to be playing this year. And I think for Justin Fields, I think that this is much like, as I was saying earlier, a lot of these free agent signings, they fit very well. And I think that Justin Fields being in Pittsburgh is the right fit for him because you have a great organization, like you said before. But let's be very clear. With all the big moves that the Steelers have made this year, and they've made a lot of really big moves, big swings in both directions, right? This is a turning point for them as a franchise. Because what they decide to do after this season, because Russell Wilson, he's on a 1-year deal. Justin Fields' rookie contract expires after this year. So it's like you have both of these guys for 1 year.
And this is Mike Tomlin's last year on contract.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, what happens?
What do we do?
So like, what happens this year and what happens after this year? And that's the thing is like, getting back to my main point where it's like, I like the moves that they did. I just have a lot of questions for the Steelers.
Patience.
And it's patience. And I don't think that we will find any of the answers until probably January of next year, when we know for sure when the season is gone through and we've seen what we've seen in the season, and it's like, okay, this is where I think the Steelers are going to go, because
Mm-hmm.
it seems like they're really making a push this year, from what it seems
Yeah.
like. But what happens after this year? That's what I want to know. And what do they look like this year? There's so many different questions, but all eyes are on Pittsburgh this year,
All
and
eyes are on the AFC North this year again.
all eyes are on
All
the
eyes are on
AFC
the
North,
AFC North.
and I'm so with it, and I'm so excited for next year, man. It's already March, and I'm like, damn, can it be September already?
You see, one of the big, it's funny. I saw something like a real funny timeline. Going with another Pittsburgh pickup. We picked up Cordell Patterson.
I saw you. You showed me
Mere
that, yeah.
hours after the kickoff rule change.
Yep.
And he is a prolific special teams runner. With this kickoff return rule change, that is now more so, who don't know, it's more so like the XFL, where there is no longer a running start for the kickoff team. They wait until the ball is caught from the returning team. There is about a 10-yard gap between the two walls of people, and they just run at each other, essentially leaving the return man to find a single seam and have about 1 to 2 men to beat. Having Cordell Patterson in the backfield is going to be very interesting with this rule change.
And also, to add to that as well, if a ball is kicked out of the end zone, it goes on your 30-yard line instead of your 25-yard line. So that's an extra 5 yards that you would have had. So that's a really big deal. If there's also like a zone.
Yeah, that's the part that I don't like.
So it's it's from the goal line to the 20-yard line. If your return man catches it, he has to return it. So I think I understand the philosophy on why they made this rule change, because they want to really limit concussions and injuries on the kickoff return. But you and I, we see a lot of games. I'll be honest, though. I mean, aside from the very few kickoff returns, I don't see a lot of detrimental injuries on kickoff returns. We see them a lot in just like
most
lower
of the injuries now are off-ball injuries due to the turf. Let's be real on that one.
100%.
First of all, when it comes to the concussion wave that the NFL went on about a decade ago, they've done their job and they've lowered concussions significantly, which is great. But while doing that, they lost sight of overall player safety.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've spoken about this a couple of times. When it comes to the overall injuries have gone up and they become more catastrophic with these rule changes. When it comes to a defenseman pretty much needing to ask permission to tackle someone properly, you can't wrap up, you can't follow through, you can't hit them at a certain level. That's what I'm getting to now. Is now they've banned the hip drop tackle. So thinking about it now, if you hit someone from the shoulders to the neck, it's a penalty. If you hit someone from the knees to the ankle, it's an injury. It's a penalty. If you hit someone at full speed at the waist and follow through, it's a penalty. Now, if you wrap up and you drop your weight and you throw someone to the floor, it's a penalty. Now, with this hip drop tackle, if you wrap up someone at the waist and just go dead weight and bring them to the floor, it is a penalty. So where does that leave for a range hit that you have to be able to monitor your speed, your impact zone, in the flash of an eye in a fraction of a second? That leaves you from your collarbone to your sternum. That is the only range that a defenseman has to legally hit you now. And he has to worry about hitting you too hard, following through, stopping short, making sure my helmet's in the perfect area, making sure my body's aligned fine, making sure I'm not running too fast, making sure they're not running too fast, making sure my hand isn't in the wrong area, or it's going to be a 30-yard penalty. They have officially made playing defense impossible.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And the sole reason for that is not for player safety. The narrative is put asses in seats.
Yeah, because the NFL wants to be a more offensive-leaning league
For ratings.
than yes. Mm-hmm.
It's a ratings league.
They don't want to see a 10-6 game.
No.
The NFL wants to see a 38-35 game.
They want to see a 100-point game happen in our lifetime. And this year we got drastically close. And I tell you, the minute we see a 100-point game, we are a season away from flag football. And that's the truth.
It's, I think, just in regards to these rule changes, the NFL is losing its character of what it really is. And again, I've talked about before of, you were the one that showed me the video that made me a Ravens
fan. The hardest
fan.
hits compilations are never going to be a thing again.
Exactly.
Defensive highlight reels are what got people into football.
Got me into football. It got me specifically, yeah.
Defense gets people elevated and ready for a football game.
Mm-hmm.
There are franchises that are known for their defenses.
Steelers
Pittsburgh,
and Ravens.
Ravens, Chicago, Raiders. You think about all these historic teams from going back 100 years. They had the defenses to back up their offenses. You are making this game totally one-sided. It's becoming a beer league for millionaires.
Yeah,
where it's rough touch. No one wants to get hurt. Everyone just wants to get paid and go home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not football.
It's disingenuous to the sport. And it, again, to your point, and I agree with your point too. When defenders have to overthink on how to play the game of football, you've already given the advantage to the offense, right? And it's going to be even more difficult to stop going forward. And again, I have 82 players written in this free agency list. 18 are quarterbacks, 12 are running backs. I haven't counted the wide receivers or the tight ends yet, but most of these guys are offense.
Right.
I haven't tallied it up, but if I had to put money on it, most of these guys are offense because that's what teams want. They're loading up on offensive players because it's like that's where the advantage is naturally coming from how the game is played. My heart goes out to defensive players because it's like
disheartening.
Because you could do everything you can, and you could do everything right, and yet you could still be penalized, and that's a shame. And that's such a shame.
Well, that's the question now. It's what is right? What do I do now as a defenseman to properly defend you? What do I do? I can't hand fight you on the run. Let's say I'm a defensive back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lining up on the line of scrimmage, I'm only allowed 2 yards of hand contact. That's been around since the 70s. Fine, the Mel Blount rule.
5 yards, actually.
Okay, 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Mel Blount rule. But after that, I have to break free and let you go. I have to let you run your route. It's basically basketball defense from there. As a defensive coordinator, I can't set my linebacker up to meet you in the middle because now he's considered a defenseless receiver. So now that hole is automatically there. Something that they decided to open in the early 2000s. So 25 years later, there is no defending over the middle anymore. So the tight end dink and dunk is now a play style. That's where that was born. We watched this overhaul and the war. Basically, it's a war on defense when it comes to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not. They cover it in player safety initiative when it's really ratings and putting asses in seats. The entertainment factor of offense outweighs the entertainment factor of defense because there's less to it. Mm-hmm. It's less complex. It's easier to follow. You and I, we could sit down and pick apart a defense and love doing it. Mm-hmm. The untrained eye loves watching offense because it's ball, receiver, touchdown. Yay, fireworks. But when you sit down and you have like a really dedicated football fan sitting and watching this total upheaval of defense, it becomes disheartening and it becomes almost hard to watch. Because while these points are going up on the board, it's a free drive. It's like, why put a defense out there if they're just going to be dummies?
Yeah, and it's extremely disheartening. I just hope that the NFL really, really thinks about these rule changes and what they're doing to the sport. But like I said earlier, it's a business. It's all about making money.
About making money, it's about ratings.
And who sells the most jerseys? Who's the number one player in jersey sales? It's Patrick Mahomes. It's the quarterback.
Well, yeah, there it is.
The top was 9 out of 10. I think
are
quarterbacks. So, or not quarterback, but at least offensive players.
Right.
And that's the things like they get the notoriety and stuff like that. And I think that just how the evolution of the game is going, it's making it more difficult for defenders to play the game. However, I don't think it's impossible for them to play the game. I think that what's going to ultimately happen is teams are going to change how to play defense. And it's going to take some growing pains, but the best teams are the ones that adapt. Because over time in the NFL, the teams that adapt to the rule changes are the ones that are the most successful at it. And I think that's like, over time, it's like, obviously in the 70s, there wasn't a 4-3. And then Mean Joe Green was like, wait, I can line up right here, and there's a 4-3. In the 80s, there wasn't a 4-6. It's like, okay, we're just going to be blitzing heavy on a 4-6. I think personally, the way I see the game go is I think over time, we're going to see a lot more interceptions over time and a lot more important secondary plays, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of penalties on the front seven for tackling, sacks, roughing the passer and everything. But I think as evolution goes on, more and more interceptions are going to be had because defenders have a right to the ball as of now until they change that. So I think what they're going to really encourage is stronger safety plays, which is like also crazy to me too, that still in free agency, there's still so many great safeties left to be signed as well. And there's still a lot of great defensive players to be signed. But which one of them fit, right? Which one really fits there? So there's a lot of discussion to be had with the rule changes in the NFL. I know you and I were not big proponents of the hip drop tackle ban. I'm not against the new kickoff rule. I want to see it implemented first before I really have an opinion on it.
That hip drop rule fucks me up.
The hip drop, it gets me because, yeah, it's hard for defenders, it's hard to unlearn what you've been learning your whole life, right?
Right. And that's where it's going to become a problem. Mm-hmm. Because this has been a fundamental thing since the dawning of football on how to tackle someone. You wrap them at the waist and you bring them to the ground. That is literally the definition of what a hip drop tackle is. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not downgrading the injury to Mark Andrews. It was catastrophic. It happened to a hip drop tackle.
Yeah.
I'm not downgrading that. How many hip drop tackles have happened over this year?
A lot. A lot, actually.
So there's one, maybe two big injuries that have happened from a hip drop tackle this year. Again, most of the injuries that have happened this year were off ball. and they were Achilles and knee injuries.
Off ball and typically at the line of scrimmage.
Right, pre-snap.
Just about, yeah, pre-snap
or at snap.
Or like we've seen linemen go down before where like someone falls on their ankles and stuff like that.
Right.
I think for the name of player safety, it's a good justification, if you will, to
It's a good
making
blanket.
it's a good blanket to have. But let's be honest though, if you're going to be playing in the NFL, you're going to get injured at some point in time.
Right, this is supposed to be full contact.
And that's the thing. It's just a fact. It's like 100% fact that if you play in the NFL, you will get injured. The degree, the severity is different per person, right? It depends. But by week 11, everyone
on your team is hurt.
Everyone's hurt.
Everyone's hurt.
So I think that it's like, and look, and the players who come into the league, they know this, right? But they're not discouraged by injuries. Is it unfortunate to see a player's health and career get cut short to injuries? Absolutely.
It's the risk you run.
But look at Leighton Vander Esch. Like, he was a linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys for 6 years, and he was forced to retire because he's just been injured for so long. And it's a shame, too. But he knew that, too. That's the thing. Is like, everyone knows in this league is like, you're going to get injured. You're going to run that risk. But for players, it's a risk worth running because of what we also discussed about earlier in this episode, money. Because it's like it's still a business. If you play in this league, you're going to make some good money doing it. Whether you're a 7th round pick or a 1st round pick, you're going to get paid.
You're going to make some money,
six figures, right? But the risk is you're probably going to get hurt. You're most definitely going to get hurt.
You're going to get hurt, and you're going to be changed forever.
And it's like, are you willing to run that risk? And for everyone in the league, it's like, yeah, because you know why? And again, back to what we said before, a player's motivation for playing for that team. Because it's like, well, I'm willing to run this risk because of not only the money, but also the fame, the ring, the respect, and the passion for the game. So there's a lot to be said with how the NFL wants the game to be played, but I think that for the nature of the game itself, it's important to just let players play, man. Just let players play.
You see, and again, this is piggybacking off what you said earlier, is that making defensemen think too much is the real detriment of these rule changes right now. Because growing up, we were all taught the same thing when we played. It was, if you slow down, it's gonna hurt more.
Mm-hmm.
Because the minute you slow down, that person is gonna be going faster than you. If you aren't going full speed and they are, you're gonna get hurt more than he is. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
But now you bring that to the professional level at full speed. Why wouldn't you want to be running full speed at a Derrick Henry running full speed? Like, just answer me that. Why wouldn't you want to be? Why wouldn't you want to be running full speed at Travis Kelce, who is running full speed at me, ready to rip my head off?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't I want to be able to run full speed and be able to make sure that we are both going to the ground safely? And it's full speed contact. And you're trying to take that away, and there's no rhyme or reason other than putting asses in seats and ratings. Injury is the risk you run. Everyone's told, listen, you will get hurt. You're going to have to tape your fingers. You're going to have to ice your body every day. You're going to have to do it. We've all did it. I still have the tan lines on my fingers from taping my fingers. It happens. Everyone's done it. Everyone's played with concussions. Everyone's played with broken wrists. Everyone's played with them. It's the nature of the game.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Man, I just hope the NFL does reconsider this, but
they won't.
We'll see over time. We'll see how it plays out in the season. Both rule changes. So I'm curious to see how the league's going to look like in 2024.
Yeah, the 2024 season is ramping up, and the draft is right around the corner.
Yes. Good segue, Chris Palmer. Good segue into into the draft. So, for those of you who don't know, the NFL draft is where every year teams collect college players and recruit them to their NFL team. Now, it's not guaranteed that they will stay on the team, by September and stuff like that. But it's like they take college players and say, "Welcome to the NFL." And I know Chris Palmer has been salivating at the at the NFL draft. He's a big proponent of college football and the NFL draft.
I wasn't salivating at the draft. I was salivating at the control the Bears had with the draft. I want that one to be very clear. This draft is a lot of fun.
The draft.
I love the draft. Draft season is a lot of fun. I've always been a fan of the draft. This year in particular, with the Bears holding the number 1, the number 9 spot, up until they got rid of Justin Fields, I thought they had that draft in a vice grip. I really did. I thought they had the draft in a vice grip.
Well, at this point, as of recording today, the Bears still kind of control their destiny. They have the 1 and the 9 pick in the first round, so they get first dibs, basically. And who knows? There could be a lot of changes from there. It's almost guaranteed that they will draft Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC.
Yeah, they already gave him a magnetic ID card to get into the facility.
Exactly. So I think in the NFL offseason, there are many phases to the end before the season even begins. Free agency, as we just discussed, is just one phase of it. Is phase 1. The draft is phase 2. Training camps, phase 3. Preseason,
actually, the draft is phase 3. We're missing the combine. Combine happened.
That's true.
Free agency, combine, draft. Draft is phase 3.
There's many phases. there's a lot of phases. So, I know if we do get a lot of, if you guys want us to do a pre-draft episode, let us know. We'll give you like our mock draft and who we think will be in the first round and everything.
Yeah, we'll mock one up.
Otherwise, we do anticipate on doing a post-draft recap around the start of May. So the NFL draft is April 25th, Thursday, April 25th, and it runs to April 27th, that Saturday. So, if you guys want us to do a mock draft, please let us know in the comments. We would love to hear your voices on this. If otherwise, expect a post-draft recap where we give you our thoughts and opinions on it, because there is a lot to recap for the NFL draft.
Yeah, the draft is going to be a lot of fun. But the free agency was a lot of fun too.
Oh man, this free agency was absolutely nuts, and we didn't even talk about all of it either. I didn't even discuss all the 82 players I wrote down. But man, there's.
But did you really expect we were going to talk all 82 players, fam?
No.
We've been here for 5 hours.
Of course not. Of course we were going to talk all 82 players that changed teams. But no.
Shit. No, but thank you for doing all the handwork that you do.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, it's I like to write stuff down, but everyone who's watching this, please let us know what you thought about free agency. Give us your thoughts, ideas, opinions. What moves did you like? What moves didn't you like? Are you looking forward to the draft as much as we are? Because we are really excited for this offseason, and we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah. For those who just watched during the year, I hope you're enjoying your offseason. For the nerds like Halpin and myself, this offseason where the year goes on, it is absolutely on fire, and this draft should be nothing less. So please leave a like, a comment, subscribe to us. If you want to have an interview for the upcoming season, please message myself or John. We will set something up. Once the schedule is out, you let us know what game you want to talk, and we will talk. We will try to schedule you in the Wednesday before the game. That is usually the day we record, is on Wednesdays. So please let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to have you, man. We had 3 wonderful guests with us last year, and we want to increase that number this year. So please, don't be afraid to reach out to either myself or Chris because we love to have you on the show. Talk your team, talk any other team. We'll just love talking football. So, with that being said, Chris Palmer, you want to send us out, baby?
And here we go, man. We'll see you guys when our post draft is up. Hope you guys enjoyed
Awesome,
this one.
awesome guys. Have a good one.